On behalf of the Cyprus Society of the School of the Freudian Letter, I would like to thank you all for attending. My name is Marinos Magliali, and I will be your host for tonight. Tonight's very interesting seminar will be delivered by Petros Patounas, Lacanian psychoanalyst of the School of the Freudian Letter, and is entitled Responding to a Manic Episode in Bipolar Disorder. This seminar is part of the Responses series, and the Responses series aim at enabling the question, what can psychiatry learn from psychoanalysis? I will give the floor to Petros now. Hello, Petro.
Okay. Hello, guys. Can you hear me very well, everybody? I'm asking because I bought a very expensive microphone, so I want to make sure that it's top of the range. Otherwise, I will throw it outside of the window. So I hope, Okay. As I promised the previous time, every single of my seminars, I will speak about the book that I read. And, I kindly consider them stupid, with good intentions, but Dante said that all roads to hell are based on good intentions. But at this stage of my practice and life, we need to expose some contradictions in those books. I mean, you don't have to call them stupid. For me, it's stupid. When I say stupid, it's something that is totally based on knowledge. That's why it's stupid. Before I go to show you that book, it occurred to me to tell you a few things about Lacan. That Lacan started with the symbolic and then he went towards jouissance. The way he interpreted the subject was a continuous, what is a subject? It's a very difficult question for a lot of Lacanians to say. Each, speaks of this, answers this question very differently. But the subject is something that is continuing. He used the word continuing. Okay, continuing, trying, whatever, it never ceases, whatever. So my interpretation today officially of what is the subject is a death drive. The way the subject is interpreted, I think it is seminar 11 or in Joyce. And there's another seminar that he says something similar, and I will tell you next time exact places where you can find them. So also psychoanalysis for Lacan, when he was at some point, he spoke about, because his return to Freud, at some places, he was a return to Freud, the idea of returning to the body. He put the limits towards the body, which I totally disagree with that. For example, he spoke about the other as a body, not in the way Angelos and me and Penny, we have been translating that. Angelos brought that to my attention, as I said many times. But he spoke about the first castration, the first separation from the mother, is when the sex is formed in her womb. So there is, when there is a mention of the body, it means that there is a blind spot there. This is what was happening to Freud. I will speak in another seminar for that, what I'm speaking about Joyce. Okay, so also the concept of lack has been, I will speak in mathematic terms related to geometry, not today, but to the one of the new seminars in a few months, related to Joyce and the shapes that appear there. The signifier, there are 3 or 4 ways that mathematically, these are terms from mathematics, that it can move to the next level of representing the subject, and every movement is formed, every triangle, because the triangles form a square in the middle, there is a gap. The lack in Lacanian terms, sometimes it was placed on the body, and this is where it was Lacan in a creed places desire, as long as other Lacanians. But lack and desire. Desire comes where there is a lack in the other, and that it has nothing to do with the body, like the biological body. If there is this, why I say this? What is the purpose of analysis? Lacan says is to form psychoanalysts. Okay, how do we form psychoanalysts? By having psychoanalysis. What we get out of psychoanalysis? It's a deconstruction of the other. What is happening when we're deconstructing the other? Many things happen. One of the things that is happening, we have more freedom to choose our things. We have more freedom of choice. But if there is a lot of deconstruction of the other, there is a deconstruction of the body. That's the no body. This is Lacan. I add the second part, but this is Lacan. He speaks about deconstructing the other. But not even one person thought of what happens when we deconstruct the other. What happens there? Okay, this is where the non-body exists, and this is where the feminine jouissance appear. And that's why there is a jouissance, there is a body beyond the body, beyond the signifier. It's not, and this is where we can think of the drive differently. So these are some notes just to tease you for my next seminars, which I believe they would be very important. And let's go now to share screen and show you the stupidity of the day. Can you see all this picture, Penny? Okay, this is a book called The New Psychoanalysis. It's by Phyllis W. Meadow, which she was one of the most two prominent analysts in a school called the modern psychoanalysis. When a Lacanian heard about what is this modern, why they call it modern, why they use the term modern, they didn't know to answer. The guy who invented that psychoanalysis is Hyman Spotnich, very talented, very gifted guy. But if you read his books, I will speak next time about his own book. It's not psychoanalysis. Penny called it once. It's not even psychotherapy, but a well-being coaching. So this woman, his best student, she was fascinated with Lacan. If you read half of the book, it's all Lacan. She speaks with so much passion about Lacan, and you get the impression that she will introduce into this modern psychoanalysis. It's based in Boston, their main quarters. She will introduce Lacan. But I knew, because I studied a lot of their books, at least 10 and at least 10 journals, which is a lot for studying an idiotic orientation. But I wanted to make sure, why they have been inviting Andre Green a lot to speak there and whatever, some other idiots. So when I read this book, at the middle of the book, immediately Lacan stops. He doesn't even exist. He exists very little. And then she goes and speaks about these theories, about the theories that her school believes, about taking out that everything is aggression, that you have to have analysis to reduce the aggression from the patient. What they are doing, actually, they are training their analysts so that they will have to expect moments that the aggression will be turned on the analyst. And what is happening, they actually provoke the aggression. This is Penny's interpretation many years ago. They actually provoke the aggression to take place in the sessions. So why in the middle of the book, this woman was speaking about Lacan, and then she foreclosed Lacan and started speaking about the ideas of Hyman Spotnich, about these stupid ideas about aggression and whatever. And they call that we are drive-based drive theories. There is nothing, and they try to separate themselves from the ego psychologists, and they are just exactly that, ego psychologists. The reason that this book starts with Lacan doesn't say anything new. It's just, they are licking the same words that everybody says. The way that she foreclosed Lacan is that she reached, that's Penny again, the name of the father. If she would have continued with Lacan, she would have had to go beyond the name of the father of her own school, and that wouldn't be allowed. So what was the solution? They start inviting. She went to Adler Green in France to have supervision. And I was thinking why she chose Adler Green. Because she thought that Adler Green, of course, he speaks a lot about the body, he's IPA analyst, blah, 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 but he has some influences from Lacan. He even uses Lacanian terminology. So by bringing the ideas of Adler Green, it would be the best idea to combine the two, to bastardize them, without having to foreclose the ideas of the founder of the school. And of course, what they created, it's, well, Penny called it well-being coaching. I wouldn't even send my worst enemy to that psychoanalysis. It's not in a coaching. I would prefer send them to coaches. So I want to say about this, why this book is stupid. Because you have this book praising Lacan, go blah, 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 and then you say about something else, which doesn't make sense. You cannot combine the two. So this is a new psychoanalysis. What is the new psychoanalysis? It's a new psychoanalysis based on mastery, but it means I have no idea what I'm doing. So I chose this book to comment for today. You don't have to buy it. If you want to buy it, but it's an example of people who don't know what to do, but they like Lacanian theory. They take the basic Lacanian stuff, they try to introduce it in their own theory. And this school, actually, they try to introduce everything. Everything. Object relations theory, this, that. It's clearly that what they are creating, they are masters. Okay? And of course, they have these calm voices that you can find if you call in Limassol Metropolis, the church, after 6 o'clock, the automatic machine will answer the phone and will speak with the same voice that they speak. This calm voice, but even though they seem so calm, they constantly speak about aggression. But of course, they display aggression on the place of the analyst. Aggression is everything. So when you hear that aggression is everything, you have to start in terms of fleas, of paranoia. He believed that the nose was everything. Anyway, I will not say more about this book, but it's the second book in the series of, you see, I don't want to use the word signifier idiot again, idiotic, but it's one of the most idiotic books I have read. Okay, let's go immediately to share the screen to see a CBT. This is a CBT. Can you all see the screen? Penny? Penny, can you hear? Yes, okay. Just do like this if you hear. Marino, can you hear? Okay, so this is a CBT by a very famous psychologist. I think she's British. It's a CBT session, 12 minutes, case study, clinical example session with a client with bipolar disorder. Okay, so that's a CBT approach. Let's start. I will be pausing to give my own whatever I want to give, and then we'll have questions. I will take only 3 questions. So those of you who want to say something, Angele, whatever, who wants to speak, I will accept only 3 questions for the very simple reason that I am invited for dinner later.
Nice to see you again, Tom. How are you today?
I'm okay.
So I understand that since I was seeing you that while ago, that you're in hospital again.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a bit more about what happened before that?
Well, it was a few months ago now. Yeah, I'd done quite well for a number of years. Sort of kept it.
The first thing that I actually dislike is that book, which is at the size of the Quran, in front of her legs, with a pen ready to write.
Under control, really, but
Yeah, I mean, I've not seen you since your gap year, wasn't it?
yeah, so that was 4 years ago. And so yeah, it was quite disappointing to go through it all again. But it sort of started at the towards the end of university. So I was doing law, and well, I was on course for a first, and I was just coming up to my my final exams, and I had a few essays and a few exams, and so I started working really hard. I felt like, right, now is the real time to put the effort in and to put the work in. So I started to step a bit later, take on a bit more work. So my stress levels sort of start to increase over a while. I was drinking a lot more coffee, took a few caffeine tablets, and energy drinks. A few people, well, because sort of the environment at the time was a lot of people were pushing themselves that they wouldn't normally do, and some people were taking Ritalin.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, which and
did you take any Ritalin?
yeah, because it was just like that was necessary.
Okay, quite a few things here. The first thing he says is that other people were pushing themselves, so I did the same. This is quite common. One of the ways that Lacan tells us that the psychotic stabilizes himself by identifying with other people's ego. Okay, so this is what he's saying here. Let's see if she picked it up and as an imaginary identification.
Sorry, at the time, and
How did that affect you?
well, it sort of increased my confidence at the time. Everything that was going on, I was becoming a lot more productive. Yeah, a lot more confident. I was working harder. My brain was working faster, and so my momentum was building up and up throughout the period. Yeah, and so I was relishing it, and I was doing a lot of work. And
So what did that mean to you then to be at that time? Because it sounds like you put quite a lot of pressure on yourself. You've been doing really well at uni, and you know, this was it. This was the time. What did it mean to you to be feeling like that, kind of more awake and more energized, maybe?
yeah, well, for me it was my sort of time. So I'd spent 3 years. I was in control. I was doing well. It wasn't really part of my life.
I will ask a different question here. He says that he was feeling better now. She's not asking the question that I will ask because she's thinking in terms of the diagnosis that he was, let's say, manic at that time. When the patient, this sort of patients tell you, or analysts, they tell you that they were feeling good with what was happening, okay? Even though that feeling good led to a collapse later, we have to analyze in what dimensions, not what happened or whatever, but how exactly. We have to do a nanotechnology of that specifically to understand why and how he was feeling good. And then we have to detect how this feeling good changed. If we consider as that is the high and then there is a down of bipolar disorder, we are missing the specificities of this person. There was something here that made him feel good, and the bad thing is what perhaps maybe he would tell us, but that this could not be sustainable, didn't have continuity. We could get a lot of signifiers here, a lot of ideas on how his desire to feel good is constructed. But she's not asking this question. Let me take it back to hear her question.
yeah, doing a lot of work. And
so what did that mean to you then to be at that time? Because it sounds like you put quite a lot of pressure on yourself. You've been doing really well at uni, and you know, this was it. This was the time. What did it mean?
Sorry. The key word here she's using it. See how she interprets all these things. Putting a lot of pressure. That's typical psychology asking. Putting a lot of pressure on yourself. He was telling her, I was feeling good. I was doing a lot of things. And then she says, you are putting a lot of pressure on yourself. She didn't. The purpose there is not to give him this sort of stupid interpretations and put him into this cognition, but to understand what factors, what ingredients were there, so you can use them later to support his desire.
Mean to you to be feeling like that, kind of more awake and more energized, maybe? Yeah,
well, for me it was my sort of time. So I'd spent 3 years. I was in control. I was doing well. It wasn't really part of my life at the time. I didn't really talk to any of my friends about it. But then I started to just sort of grow into it. And I took the opportunity to enjoy this time. And it didn't really reach its peak until after my exams. I was still functioning throughout my exams. I have since found out that I didn't get the results that I wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that was?
Well, I thought that I was working harder than ever, but it was misjudged, I think, and so I didn't perform to the best of my ability when it came to the exams, and so I didn't achieve a first high. I only got 2-1.
What else was happening for you around that time? I mean, you talked about the pressure of your exams and staying up for them. Was anything else going on for you around the same time?
She's still not picking up. Yes, there is a collapse, but she's not taking up these good ingredients that he's giving her. There is something that he was doing well. He was studying. Yes, there was energy, all this stuff, but if it was me, I will elaborate. I will ask clarification questions to make them very, very specific in him. And then the next step, I will see when this beautiful talents that he have, under what context they are lost. But she's not doing that.
So it was the end of university, and that was the time where, well, as soon as that period stopped of work, then I was sort of let off the leash a bit, and I just sort of to grow even further. So I mentioned I was taking Ritalin, drinking a lot of coffee, and
okay. One of the most common words he's using is to grow further, to do more stuff. So there is something in relation to a death rate, a continuous movement. Okay. So this person creates a lot. He does this. He has this energy to create whatever. So, but there is no context. I'm not sure if she will ask. Let's see how he can contextualize these gifts to achieve all this stuff in his own relation of time, in his own subjectivity.
And as soon as exams had stopped, substance abuse sort of took a bit more of a hold. And I just sort of grew into...
Substance abuse appears where the pause should be. He's not breathing. The pause is what will allow these gifts to reconstruct themselves and reproduce. So he's taking the limit on his body. He's taking substance abuse because he thinks he needs to, he doesn't know how to stop. Okay? He doesn't know how to stop. And so he's trying to put the limit on his body.
To this person who I thought was him, was the guy that everyone wanted to be around and to see, and so I made sure that I was just everywhere that to be seen. I was, so
this is like the gap after you finish the exams but before the results are out. Those
yeah,
kind of few
yeah.
weeks.
Which word she didn't pick up? Because she's an idiot. She's an idiot. Like she shouldn't be, not even assistant in a. I don't know where to place her. The word that she didn't pick up is this. Listen to it again.
The guy that everyone wanted to be around and to see, and so I made sure that I was just everywhere.
Everyone, everywhere.
That to be seen, I was,
So this is like the gap after you finish the exams but before the results are out. Those kind of few weeks.
So
No question about it. No question about it.
we were just going out a lot, if not every night.
You said that you were taking Ritalin and drinking a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
And using other drugs as well.
Yeah, it sort of developed into cocaine, a lot of cocaine, MDMA, MCAT.
And how did they affect you?
I honestly was on cloud 9 at the time. I was the person that everyone wanted to know. In my head, I put myself at the center of the universe, and I convinced a friend of mine who develops.
Pay attention to that master signifier. Center of the universe, and how he put himself in the center of the universe. Because whatever he was thinking that he was talking about taking, the drugs, they were relaxing him. Okay, so this center of the universe, it's where he's going to place himself. That's where I will help him to create a universe where he would be the center. Okay, so he doesn't have to get through all this stuff. That's his place.
Apps that we should. As if I had an idea to develop an app about when you go into a alcohol shop, that it will weigh up, like what's the most cost-effective way to get wasted.
Right.
So I mean, at the time I was spending a lot of money, a lot of my parents' savings. I'd got a credit card, which I didn't tell them about. And so in this sort of role as the man about town, I was spent a lot on.
Listen to that. The man is he who spends a lot. This is really, really important. It's coming from his history. I don't know if he's going to give us more information, but that's another master signifier indicating a very fragile position of what a man is. Someone who spends a lot. I will add something to it because it relates to the drive. A man who spends and a man who is spended is wasted.
Yeah, alcohol, drugs, clothes. I invested in this technology. And yeah, I was.
So it sounds like it began with kind of the exam pressure and putting more pressure on yourself to stay up, using kind of stimulants to keep yourself awake.
So this is the trigger that they are trying to find in CBT. And then another technique that they are using is the grounding techniques. Okay, so that's she didn't allow him to find to speak about that. She didn't even ask him. It seems that it started from that.
And then you started to feel like you were more and more the man. You were kind of popular, you were successful. How did you respond and cope with those symptoms? What did you do once those are kind of...
Sorry for interrupting, but just you kind of start feeling like the man, you were popular, and then she adds, how did you start dealing with those symptoms? These were not symptoms. This is what he wants. Something else is a symptom. If you take away from him this, he will get totally dissolved because he doesn't have at the moment any other identification, any other answer of how to be a man. Pay attention to what she's saying.
Begun.
Well, having not had to deal with my illness throughout university, and for it not being a part of that world, I didn't confront those symptoms in a way that's going to have long-term sort of stability.
The questions she's asking about the symptoms are not to understand their context, but to understand how he feels or what he thinks about the symptom. And if you pay attention, the language that he's using, it's language borrowed by this idiot woman. Okay, not even a question to unfold so he can speak with his own voice.
Well, it began with doing the work that I needed to do. That's just what I needed to do in order to achieve my goals and to achieve what I want to. And then I just let it take hold, and it was all part of it. It wasn't the illness, it was me. It was just I was the master of this whole situation, and everything that was happening was down to my own doing.
So it sounds, you say on the one hand you didn't confront it, you kind of just let it roll. And on the other hand you said that you kind of took it as evidence that you were very energetic, you were powerful. This was all kind of...
What this super idiot missed here, at that point, this young boy, he's actually taking responsibility. It's all misses. And he doesn't do it in a sense, oh, I'm to blame, all this shit. He's saying, well, it was kind of my responsibility. He's not speaking. He removed himself from the discourse of being ill, and she's going to put him back again because she doesn't understand about the responsibility of the subject.
Explained about who you were, and it, I guess, how did that affect you, looking at things in that way?
It was my time.
My time.
It had all been leading to this was the moment where I would sort of become the person that I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. All the hard work, everything, all the work that my parents had done for me, all the work that I'd been doing, it was now crystallizing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's saying it was my time, I was becoming the person I want to be. Just as an exercise for you, think of what a question is coming. What would be her question? This is a material. And think of what would you ask? If you're telling you, this was my time, I will tell you what I will do. I will elaborate that. It's my time. I wanted to be the person to be. So I will ask clarification question. I will allow him to speak about this thing.
It felt like you were on the brink of something
Yeah.
enormous from the sounds of it.
All the work that I'd been doing,
So I didn't understand what she said.
it was now crystallizing.
It felt like you were on the brink of something
Yeah.
enormous from the sounds of it. Again, going back to that kind of beginning stage where you started to stay up late and
Okay.
use stimulants. I mean, how
You just make a comment and then let's go back to that stage that you start becoming ill and you stay up late, blah, blah, blah. She doesn't get it. She doesn't give a shit about it.
much sleep were you getting at the beginning?
Going back to your ill.
It gradually diminished, I think. It began at 6, 5, and then ended up about 3 and 2 hours.
And what kind of things did you notice? Did you notice any changes from having less and less sleep in your body maybe, or the way you were thinking?
I think the harder I was working, the faster my brain then would work, and the harder I worked, the more I would do. So it was just the momentum was building more than anything, and my thoughts were fire.
A beautiful question here would be if we could somehow influence this woman with this good woman, but he has this planked, stupid smile on her face. Okay, a good question to ask her. Let me hear with it.
Brain then would work, and the harder I worked, the more I would do.
This question to ask her would be, think for yourself, idiot, what sort of identification is he trying to achieve, even imaginary identification, with this hard work that leads him to be burned? With what is he trying to identify? Nothing of that.
So it was just the momentum was building more than anything, and my thoughts were firing, and my goals were stronger, and my determination was bigger.
And how did you feel in your body? Did you notice any?
So pay attention when you ask these stupid questions about diagnosis and these very general questions, whatever, based on what you want the patient to think. What they give you, it's very generalized word like confidence, lack of confidence, tiredness, depression. You don't get anywhere. You are speaking the same discourse like them. This is where subjectivity is lost. How? Because the therapists, the psychoanalysts, the psychologists, they are not asking questions to unfold the context of the subject. They are asking questions to reduce the subject into a discourse of illness, and then the subject adapts into this discourse.
Any changes physically?
Not that I can recall at the time. Maybe I was avoiding confronting any negative effects, but nothing powerful comes to mind.
Okay. And once things were a bit further along after your exams, you said you're going out a lot, you convinced your friend to do this app. Was there anything else that you did that maybe you wouldn't normally do that you think might have been a sign to you that your mood was much higher than you'd like it to be?
I had a lot of savings that my parents had built up for me, which don't really exist anymore, either through the money I invested and through drugs, close. I had a girlfriend at the time, but because I was the main character in a sense, that I was only the really person that mattered, and so sort of those around me, especially her, sort of didn't really have as much importance. So on nights out, she just wouldn't be in my mind, and so there would be other women.
Okay.
So.
And how do you feel about that now, looking back on it?
I think it's those moments where it's not just me.
Pay attention to this structure. And how do you feel? How do you feel? This is the worst question you can ask someone in the sessions. But listen to his response.
Women.
Okay.
So.
Listen to that.
And how do you feel about that now, looking back on it?
Feel?
I think
he's actually responding much better to you.
It's those moments where it's not just me, it's those closest to you and those around you that have to suffer them more than anyone else. That brings like a lot of the shame. Yeah.
Okay. Let's get to your questions. I will accept 3 or 4. Penny?
Thank you, Petros, for bringing this and the commentary. I think it's really helpful to begin to cut into these and help us to think in a more localized, specified way. While I was hearing the exchange, I had in mind some students that I met over the years who were bipolar, and the bipolar condition is different to the others in the sense that the subject is not suffering. They're not suffering in that context. Yes. So their perspective is very different, and it made me think of, I don't want to spend too much time talking now, but how to transmit what I'm thinking and seeing. When the subject is on the high, they really are high. And what you said at the beginning, you mentioned about the body, you mentioned geometry, and essentially what's happening in the manic condition is that the subject is losing their markers for proportion and geometry, and they're not able to take into account what the body can metabolize. So there's a burnout that happens. It's a bit like an aeroplane that has so much fuel, but it flies so high and so joyful that it runs out of fuel mid-flight, right? So the matter of context that you're talking about and allowing the subject to elaborate a different relation to the signifier than the one that's organized around the meanings and the parameters that are permitted within the discourse of the master, right? Something like that. Because the discourse of the master wants to pathologize the expansiveness and the ambition of the subject. I don't know the context of this young man. It's possible that for him, maybe he's trying to realize the dreams of his mother, and there isn't something that gives him a limit, and he has to, he's driven, and that's why he's feeling so exalted. I don't know, because that never came up. They never talk about Oedipal things. But anyway, that's it for now. But it's a very valuable exercise. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Angele?
I'm not sure if there's something that I haven't noticed, but I think that I haven't heard this person talking about his depression, only about his mania, only about feeling good. And what was lost there, it was a good intervention from you, Petros, that I want to repeat here. It was, he was feeling good. The therapist was returning back to the depressive state. But what this man was saying, that it was, I was feeling so good that the whole context was lost around me. This everywhere, everything. That's what was his suffering, not his depression. Into this good feeling, if we are talking about feelings like the therapist, that the whole context was vanishing, and with it himself. This is how he was wasted.
So it relates to a death drive, and from the place of the psychoanalyst, this is what the psychoanalyst should do, to find a way to contextualize into some sort of space, into a direction, orientation, and a cause, this good feeling. So it has these parameters. Thank you, Angela. Very, very nice comment. You want to say something else? Are you okay? Angelos want to comment something else?
No, it's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Marino, you wanted to comment?
No comment.
You had a question in the beginning? No?
No.
Okay. Anybody else?
One minor thing to add just on what Angelos said. One of the students that I met who, I only saw these students once. It was just a single conversation. I'm sure I've mentioned her before. She was one of the last students I assessed. She was a PhD student, and she had what they call cyclical. She would go up and then she would crash for a month. She would be in bed, wouldn't be able to get out of bed. And while we were speaking, it was with her really that it sort of clarified for me, because she was, I said to her, how was your study? Because that was my role there, to see the impact of study of her condition. And I said, how was the effect on your study in your up period? And she said, great. She was doing great things, etc. But the issue was that she would have to spend a month or so in bed, not being able to get up afterwards. So through that conversation, I said, well, you have two options. Probably while you're on the high, you're, exhausting your energies. And then the crash afterwards is a recuperation. You need that period. So it's up to you. You can either construct some artificial limits so that you don't let it run so far and you regulate that, or you accept that you're happy with what you get from the time you're high, and accept that the period you have to stay in bed is, just part of that. It's up to you. And the reason it's worth mentioning is because I got an email from her about 6 weeks later where she said, she thanked me. She didn't tell me how she solved it, but she said she solved it. So based on that conversation, she found a way to regulate her symptom, and I never heard from her again.
Well, she found her own rhythm. That's a very good solution.
I'll make another comment if.
Yeah, go for it.
It reminded me of another case, but I think we should approach and mention it, that that doesn't need to be a direct treatment of what they bring us suffering. And I remember the child I had that her mother brought her to me, that she had phobias, various phobias. She wouldn't sleep at night. She never talked about what she was bothered with. We just made what we do. We had a good time with this girl, and phobias disappeared. And her mother is still mentioning about the work that has been done. She never talked about what was fearing about. Never.
Well, I can add something here, that good times, having good time, it was took the place of the phobia. in what you are saying. So you gave her that option for the rest of your life. It's a structural. It's very clever what you did. So what you gave here, it's to have good time, and the phobia will not be there. I like it.
Do you want one more?
Yeah.
I've mentioned this one before too. It goes on the back of what Agilos has said. Again, a student, he was in his 50s, he was an engineer, he was doing a master's degree, he was at least a foot taller than I was. When I went to bring him to my office for the meeting, he was walking very, very timidly, as if he was afraid of me. It was like this. So as when he sat down, I opened his documents, I looked, and I saw that he went to university when he was 16. So I said, you went to university at 16, you know, being positive there about him. Anyway, he didn't say anything, but about 45 minutes later, when he was more relaxed with me, he said to me, you know, I didn't go to university at 16 because I was a genius. I went to university at 16 to get away from my father. My father he had been an orphan, and he was trained by the US Navy, the US Air Force, and they used to choose orphans because they would be totally loyal. And he was one of the pilots who was flying the planes with the bomb in the 60s. He said he was one of the Dr. Strangelove pilots. And he said to me, you know, the ground, it must have been after 2001. He said, you know, the ground zero, it wasn't, you know, there where it is now. It was in New Mexico where they were doing the testing of the nuclear bombs. So his father, in his early 20s, was doing that work, but he tortured them at home. So he went to university. He, used his education as a way to get away from his father. And he said he had an option one day, and he thought about it, whether his father was having a heart attack, and he had the option whether to let him die or not. And he had to think whether to save him or not. He did save him. So he told me these things. The issue for him was similar to this lady. Actually, he didn't really have a big problem, because for him, the down was about 36 hours where he would be catatonic, right? And it wasn't really that big a disruption for his study. And actually, he wasn't suffering in that. He was just in his own world. And I said to him, and how was it on the high? He said, out of this world, but I don't tell my doctors. Did you hear me when I said that, right? So this is something that they don't generally reveal. They're not able to reveal it to people who can't give their blessing on them having a good time.
But by revealing it to you, he was also creating a contact with the social bond.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And by then, so where his posture was so timid, as he realized that I wasn't against his jouissance or his desire, he was relaxed, and he was able to assume his body as a man he was at least 6'4", 6'5", and he assumed his stature. By the time he left, he was walking straight.
He could have been Goliath if he would have born 3,000 years ago. Okay, thank you, Penny, for your comment. Anybody? No?
Yes, I have a comment, Petro. I have a question.
Yeah. Last one.
Okay, you said at the point to ask how do you feel is the worst question to ask in a session.
We don't, especially in Lacanian session, we don't ask how they feel. You see, she asks, if you ask how you feel, you don't concentrate on the signifier. You try to say, what did you feel? Okay. Lacan said that the feelings are deceiving besides anxiety. So we don't really feel. We don't really ask how you feel, how you felt about it. You can ask how was the experience for you, but you don't concentrate on the feelings. The feelings is a clearly American ego, cognitive, all this American stuff that came from there. They use the word feelings. That's why in the films they say, how did you feel? How did you feel? I don't have to go to a fucking psychotherapist to speak about what I felt. I can speak to myself. I can speak to my friends. Okay? So knowing that because of the structure of their conscious that the feelings are deceiving, because you might experience, let's say, jealousy or anger, but at the bottom line will be jealousy because your friend has a girlfriend that you like, not you, somebody else. Okay? So the only, like I said, that the only feeling in quote, that never lies is anxiety. Okay? We don't really ask, how did you feel? Anyway, even in the because how did you feel is imaginary. So in the place, I don't remember where, but if you can read it online, when it will be online, where she asked, how did you feel? She missed a very powerful moment to elaborate and get more information about the narrative, to explore the narrative and get, for example, what is good for that individual. If you pay attention, she was pushing it towards the illness. She couldn't understand desire. She couldn't even cure him by the means he had available to him. The fact that he was so in what she called as manic state, it was not a problem. It was a problem whilst it was not in a proper context. Okay? Let's say you have Usain Bolt. Okay? If he's running everywhere in life like that, he will die. But if he's running like that in a specific context of being an athlete, then you've got this amazing man. So she's thinking in terms of what she was taught that bipolar disorder has, and she was trying to acknowledge these grounding points, these manic points, blah, 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 blah. She was not actually listening. When this thing is online, pay attention to what I said and what she was saying. She was not listening at all. She was just asking a question for him to describe his illness, not any possible material for desire. Did I answer your question, Harula? Or should I say more?
No, it's fine. Thank you.
Yeah. Lacan, at some point towards the end of his teaching, he spoke about the creation of a new signifier. The creation of this new signifier, it was not related to the other, because the other, towards the end of analysis, if someone wants to go towards there, is dissolved, is deconstructed. So the deconstruction of the other means the non-body. If the other is deconstructed, you've got two possible solutions: to create from the pieces the symptom, or to create new signifiers. This is Lacan. Okay? This is Lacan. And the creation of new signifiers leads to the experience of Saint Teresa and Saint Francis of Assisi. I'm just giving you a few teasers for the seminars that will follow in September. That will be on the books of Jacques Lacan. Any other question? Actually, I said no. Okay. Thank you very much for participating. I think that this will provoke questions and maybe help you with your practices. And I will give a lot of videos like this. Today we have one for CBT. I will give you for Rogerian therapy. I will give you for Kohutian therapy. I'll give you for object relations theory from proper IPA theory. I will give you sessions so you can understand how the other orientations function. Okay? I will even show you from Lacanian. My interpretation here is not Lacanian, but it's mine. The divine drive, by the way, Harula, that I mentioned, and I think you are going to have a book about your seminar. The divine drive appears where the subject places the act in the gap, because it assumes that the gap is not a place of desire, but a place where the act will be constructed. And if the subject, this continuous thing of the subject is a death drive, then there is another sort of the drive being created there. Anyway, enjoy your evening. I'm going to enjoy mine. And I will see you soon.